Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets? I know you're singing. After all, it's Emancipation Day. Let's get straight into another Corner Beats. Share your views on this evening's topic, the misrepresentation of women in the media.
Hi, I'm Camille, and you are?
Kathia.
Hi, Kathia. Do you believe that the media influences your behavior?
No. Reason being, as a strong-headed person or strong-minded person, the media does not influence my behavior at all.
What do you think of the media's portrayal of women?
The media portrayal of women is sometimes negative and sometimes positive. Negative in the sense that how they portray women in certain advertisements, especially for alcohol. Sometimes, how women are carried across is not really the best way to carry across our women in the society.
And then when you say women and alcohol, you're speaking about advertisement.
Right.
Has the media impacted on the way you view women?
Well, somewhat it has, somewhat it has not, because we should realize that these women, although they are portrayed that way, some of them are portrayed that way, that is not them out of a work situation. So you wouldn't get them behaving that way.
And work being professional situation.
Right, professional situation, meaning outside of the TV, they're probably different individuals from what you see them come across on the TV. As in, they're professionals and they're asked to do certain things, so they'll do it because of professional situation and how they have to handle themselves.
So having said all this, has the media impacted on the way you view women in leadership positions?
Yes, it has. Because as professionals, again, it comes down to the level of professionalism. As leaders, you are supposed to carry yourself, whether in or out of the media, as a professional.
Kevin, thank you so much for sharing with me, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, you too.
Hi, I'm Camille, and you are?
Shanine.
Hi, Shanine.
Hi.
Do you believe that the media influences your behavior?
No.
Why?
Because I tend to go off my own mind, and I dare to be different, so the media don't really influence me a lot.
What do you think of the media's portrayal of women?
Well, we're weak, men are mostly superior than us, men are mostly strong, men are superheroes, we're just the sidekicks, basically.
So basically you're saying that women in the media are not seen as these nice, strong, muscular women.
No, we're mostly wives.
Is something wrong with being a wife?
Nothing is wrong, But sometimes men can stay home with the kids and we work.
Talk about a balance. Has the media impacted on the way you view women?
No, because the media tends to show women basically as just secretaries or even teachers, they don't view us as prime minister, you know what I'm saying? They don't view us as leader of like a bank manager. I don't think, we're mostly like sweeping up floors, pressing.
Although you mentioned that we do have a female prime minister, and I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah, but they always say that she's weak, she can't manage a country, They tend to say that we're too weak to manage a country. It's a man's job.
So although you just say women are weak and they cannot run a country, has it impacted on the way you view women in leadership? Would you vote for another female prime minister?
Of course I would vote for another female prime minister, because females tend to more understand the feelings of people. Men, the testosterone gets in the way.
So you're basically saying that
they're afraid to show their emotions. They tend to want to be all the while strong. They don't know to break down or break it down a little.
So you're saying that a female leader is more in tune with the emotions of how someone would feel if she should make certain decisions.
Yes.
And the media itself has portrayed women in a negative way to say that, well, we're not capable of being leaders as well as we're weaklings. Am I right?
Right. For example, a woman would be more straightforward and say, listen, we can't borrow money from abroad.
Really?
They say that we'll pay bad. A man even mostly come out and lie to us. See if I ask your husband for money and I'm afraid to tell you no.
I'm single.
And I'm afraid to tell you no, and he'll be like, sweetheart, may I get the money tomorrow? Which you don't know where he's getting it from. Where I'm more likely be, I don't know where I'm getting it from, I don't have it. You know?
Wow, I understand. Thank you so much for sharing with me, Shani. Hi, I'm Camille, and you are?
I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian. Do you believe that the media influences your behavior?
No, not really. It's quite
Minimal.
yeah, I could say minimal, because due to the fact that all the media players and everything, you can see, you know, everything they portray out and come along.
Alright. What do you think of the media's portrayal of women?
Well, all the media show women, you can know that basically by how them dress. They see a woman like dancehall artist, first thing come to your mind, some sex appeal, something scanty. Most likely you see cleavage and thing, and then something small, something tight. You have a quick sex appeal and think about to keep your eye focused on the show and everything.
So outside of that, alright then, what about women in leadership?
Female leaders? Nah, I don't really see it, because female on a whole, soft at heart, are kind-hearted, so to speak.
Alright, so say for example, you're in your workplace and your boss is a female. What is your view on a female leader?
I'm not really take her serious.
You don't take her serious. Alright. Let's think of some of the political campaign cartoons. Would you say that they portray women in a negative light? Especially when we have like campaigns going on and
yeah, you can't see it like that, because most likely first place I'm gonna show they get an area. You see a woman with baby and them little
exactly. So basically the media for you portrays women inside a household. They're always tied to the family unit, am I right?
Yeah.
So basically the media hardly portrays women in leadership positions.
No, they're not sure in a leader position. You just see them there, just there, so
wow.
to speak.
We're just there. I think I need to make a difference. But thank you so much for sharing with me, Brian.
You're welcome.
Alright. Hi, I'm Camille, and you are?
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the media influences your behavior?
No, I don't.
Explain.
Because I do what I want to do when I want to do it.
You do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah.
Alright, boss man. What do you think of the media's portrayal of women?
Sometimes it's downgraded, but some of the time how the woman them behave make it looks that way.
So it basically said the behavior of females then.
Some females.
I'm glad I said that. Some females. Has the media impacted on the way you view women?
At times, like songs I hear put them down. So some of the time you see them drop, and you say, oh, you call them a lot of names and them things sometimes.
So you're basically saying that the music that we hear oftentimes portray women in a negative way, to say that we give them certain characteristics and personal traits that are negative.
Negative, yeah.
Right. So what about women in leadership?
Women in leadership.
So say for example, you see an image of a woman in the newspaper or on the internet, and this woman is supposed to be in a leadership position.
Yeah.
Would you say that this image would impact on the way you view this person as a leader?
At times, because sometimes you can see a positive image with that person, right? But sometimes you can also see a negative image.
So basically you're saying there is good and there is
bad.
Thank you so much for sharing with me. So that's it for this week on Corner Beats. Back to you, Georgia and Mariah.
Thanks, Camille, and you've just heard it, Corner Beat recording. So Georgia, interesting perspective. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's always interesting to see how people think that media doesn't affect them. And
right.
I think research actually shows very often people will say that it doesn't affect me, but it affects you. It affects everybody else but you. And I think, I don't think there's any shame in saying that it does affect you. And part of the reason why many companies spend so much money on advertising, if you try to buy a spot now on TVJ, you can't afford it because it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the reason why they spend that kind of money is because they know that it makes a difference, it impacts. Sometimes it's about content, and sometimes it's just about repetition. And I think in terms of some of the things that came out was just the recurrence, this continued emphasis on certain images. So if you see certain things over and over and over again, you know, it's like Brian said, him don't take him boss seriously. Like, you know, because when he sees his boss, very likely he begins to make associations with images and portrayals and different kinds of representations that he's seen before. In again, looking back at some of the research from the Global Media Monitoring Project, we find that very often politicians get a lot of space time,
Right.
on TV and radio in particular, and we know that most of the politicians are male.
Right.
So in terms of a voice of authority,
It's
we,
male.
we tend to see a male voice. And you know, when we are hearing female voices, sometimes they're not. How do we hear those voices framed?
Right.
Are they being set up in a way for us to inspire confidence, or for us to question their capacity?
That's so true. And you know, going back to a point on Corner Beat, when he said that he's the basically boss of himself and that no media can control, you know, until we see black and white studies that have really proven that media does impact, because even the issue of children and TV, a lot of people say, you know, well, it doesn't impact because this and what, but it does really. As you say, there's thousands of dollars for a spot on whichever media,
right?
Because there is a merit to having people, you know, see that. But let's go a little deeper in that. The work with WMW, we know that's a 25-year-old organization that has been doing a lot of stuff. But as it relates to critical analysis of the media, share with our listeners a little about the organization, its mandate, and its work.
Well, I mean, because we've always fundamentally believed in the power of media, for most of our life as an organization, we've emphasized a lot of training in terms of, you know, we can't always control what we become exposed to, and particularly youth and young people. But how do we understand some of the messages, and how do we process the messages? So we do quite a bit of media literacy work with all kinds of different groups and organizations, community-based and otherwise. We also, a big part of what we do too is working with professionals, working with journalists, wanting to encourage them to incorporate a sense of gender equality into their work, you know, so helping them to understand why it's important to do that, and showing them ways that they can incorporate that perspective into their stories, into their reporting, into how they frame different kinds of issues.
Okay.
So we do media literacy work, we do training with journalists, and we do some advocacy, you know, so like with the Broadcasting Commission, for example, when it was just coming into existence, the Children's Code for Programming was one of the areas that we attempted to influence, because we said, all right, while you can't say causally, like you can't say, all right, you watch a show and then you go take up a gun.
Right.
Like, it's not as straightforward as that. But we do know that it does impact, it does affect, and therefore we need to be responsible. And so we helped create kind of some of the rules. So, you know, when you see PG-14 or this, and you have the advisories, we were part of some of the work that helped to make that happen.
Okay, excellent. And I do agree with that. We have a responsibility as a nation. If you're just joining us, we are on Equal Spaces, and our guest is Georgia Love. And of course, we're following our theme, Women Leadership and the Future. And our topic today is misrepresentation. And so we're going into the work that WMW has been doing so far. And we've been hearing some interesting topic. But one that caught my eye is like powerhouse.
We just said powerhouse.
Powerhouse. Okay, listeners, it's POWHER in capital and house. And this is like harnessing the media for women's political empowerment. Very interesting title. Of course, Georgia, what's this project about?
We're wanting to ensure that a lot of the media that is out there is representative of women and men in all their diversity, right? And we see how many of the media makers are very often not women, both news and otherwise. So through this project, we are wanting to provide more information about what's happening in gender equality, helping people to understand what the situation really is. So we're developing a website, the Powerhouse website, which is going to be through our own WMW site, exposing people to information about different things that are happening and opportunities for women to improve on their leadership skills, training opportunities, that kind of thing. So how can they be better leaders? So offering that information through our website. The next piece is about training and saying, all right, media isn't just something that you need to feel like whatever RJR or Roots put on, that's all you can right. be exposed to. You can use particularly new media, so like the internet and different social media platforms, to begin to get your word out there. So like that's one of the problems, for example, with women who are running for politics. Up for the period before the election, we don't see them. We don't see them and hear them talking about different issues. We don't see them working in their communities. Okay. So we need to be able to see some of that work before, because it's seeing it before that helps you to inspire confidence and people to understand, yeah man, you know, I saw her doing this, I saw her doing that, right. I saw her working in the community. And that's how people build credibility. That's how women will build their credibility. So we're wanting to offer training in terms of saying, how can you use media to your advantage and help inspire people to understand that your leadership is as good as any. And we're offering training to both young women and older women, urban and rural.
If persons want to participate, because of course, listeners, this is a young person who has dedicated her life to a lot of things, to empowering nation building. And when it comes to nation building, it's everybody's business. And so if someone wants to participate, where is the office located?
We are at 1A Goodwood Terrace, which is off Constant Spring Road. By Telstar Cable on that same road. So, you know, we're a good location right on a bus route.
Exactly. And do you have a number if somebody wants to call in?
Right. Phone number 969-7894. And our cell is 881-5177.
Perfect. And so I know there are aspiring leaders there who are listening to the program now and, you know, might be inspired based on something that you said earlier. So, you know, it's funny that people would say, what are the successful qualities that a leader should have? But you mentioned women. You talk about connecting in your community so that when election or any other arena comes for leadership, you don't have to be seeing that person know. You know, so other than connecting on the ground level, what other qualities should that leader have to differentiate themselves?
Well, you know, integrity, I think, is also an important quality for any leader, woman or man, and helping people to understand that you are really you're doing the work that you're doing for their interests, not just, you know, self-serving. And I mean, I think too, not being afraid to take risks and even when you might be unpopular, because sometimes when you're changing the stream, when you're changing the way things have always been done, people get nervous. Right. But the fact is, nothing changes if nothing changes. So I think women who are willing to really put themselves out there are critical in terms of helping us to understand differently what leadership can be, and so it's not just about bullying, and it's not just about shouting and you know, barking orders. That you want to really inspire people to develop themselves in a way that will benefit everybody.
That's good. In our political arena, we know, as you say, it's not about shouting out and, you know, that kind of tribalistic. and maybe that's a deterrent why some women, kind of not wanting to participate in that field. Based on some of the work that WMW has done so far, I would think some of the listeners probably would want to know what are some of the practical strategies that can motivate and help women articulate their vision and enhance their presence at the table. And at the table not necessarily mean at the table of political arena, but at leadership, at decision. What are some of those strategies that we can move as a team?
Well, I think networking is critical. As you were talking about not shouting, I reflected on that incident. I can't even remember how long ago it was now, but when Portia said, don't draw my tongue.
Right.
And how much press that got.
Right.
A part of, unless we respond to those kinds of images, unless we indicate that that's not the only thing that we're interested in,
right,
we will continue to see those things. I think networking, so women supporting other women, so when they do put themselves forward, saying, okay, if you have the backative of other women and a network of people who believe in the work that you're doing, I think that's an important way to build your credibility. And when you are at the table, people will more likely believe that you should be there.
Right.
I think practice, particularly as it relates to using the media, be it radio, television, internet, for example. It can be a very scary space,
right?
Especially when you mess up and it feels like, okay, it follows you, but
it does sometimes.
But you have to do it in order to get better at
yes.
it. One of the great things about media is that it takes you places where you can't go. So while you are working in Kingston, like if you record a video, for example, that video can be shared with people throughout the country and throughout the world, and so it can give you a lot more traction and exposure.
Well, those are good points. Networking is definitely a must, and we definitely need to support. I hear there was a comment that I was at a presentation, and Merlin Daly, who's a very vibrant speaker, I think she's involved in a women's political caucus.
Yeah.
And she mentioned at that function that unlike what we are thinking sometimes that women don't support women, there are so much women who are, nurturing other leaders, who are motivating other leaders and inspiring those leaders. It's just for us to align, as you said, network with the pertinent person. A point that came across though, and I'm going to ask you to just expand on based on your experience and what your thoughts are, is gender. A lot of people hear this word gender and totally probably some might understand it and some might not. When you say gender awareness and gender advocacy, what does that totally means for the layman? What is that saying?
Your body parts. That is technically your sex, whether you're male or female. Gender is more about how you understand yourself as man and woman, or everything in between.
Right.
That it's related to social expectations and the roles that you play. So it has everything to do with your cultural context. So yeah, that's what gender is. That it's what does it mean to be a man or a woman within a specific social and cultural context.
Okay.
And the expectations and roles that you play because you are man or woman.
Okay, because on Corner Beat we heard, I think it was Bran who mentioned that sometimes women portray themselves as something, and so in fact it is that reason for the misrepresentation. And if you're just coming in on the program, the theme of course we're following is women leadership and the future, and our topic today is misrepresentation, and with us we have Georgia Love from WMW Jamaica. Sometimes women do misrepresent themselves, but is it of a lack of not knowing, or as you say, socialization, or maybe cultural? Some of these things are factor. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think particularly as it relates to media and representation too, when we see certain kinds of messages about what it means to be woman or what it means to be man kind of affirmed continually. So for example, going back to Brown and his Corner Beat comment, women are often encouraged to believe that their most important asset is their physical appearance and physical beauty. And we see that overemphasized all the time. And I mean, when you don't have affirmation for when you assert yourself and when you're confident and when you are willing to put yourself out there, then we're, less likely to see. Yeah, you go with what gets the affirmation and what gets the positive reinforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's imperative while we ask, as women and leaders that, wanting to come to the table, we have, basically have to have a sense of confidence, a sense of assertiveness, and somehow know what we want and what's our own worth.
And socially, and the society needs to affirm that. So when women are asserting themselves, that we can't be overly critical, because very often we are.
Right.
So, we'll see a woman who is articulating her position on something, and all we depend on what she wear.
It's true.
So, Lord, she couldn't wear something better.
True. Or the hairstyle.
For example, I don't know if you remember at the Olympics, the last Olympics, a young black gymnast.
I do remember.
And, I think, she was probably the first one to get some gold medal, and she was...
And the youngest.
Right. She was breaking records.
I know.
And then when we're talking about her on the internet, everybody's like, yo, want my ear now cream.
Yes.
Yeah, why her hair looks so...
It was so disappointing, for real.
And so, in other words, the only way we're going to get better is if we as the public check ourselves. So when people do put themselves forward, we have to be mindful of, if that was me on the other side,
right?
How would I want people to perceive and treat what I'm trying to do,
Yeah, and people are human beings too, and we are prone to, we're not perfect. And so really, when we put ourselves out there as leaders and put ourselves in the limelight, it is really a critical position. And yes, we know it's a critical point, but the persons who are criticizing to have to be, kind in their criticism then.
Yeah.
And to be mindful that this, particular spot is one of the hot spots, so you definitely can't be overcritical. We go back again to some of the salient points that we mentioned, and it's out of the corner beat. I would say a lot of persons would allude to the fact that they think that media does not impact on anything, and that they're really having their own free will, so to say. People would notice, like, what they turn to the paper in the first thing in the morning, they look at Clovis's cartoons,
right? And
so they look for that social thing that's happening, which is a media representation of what is happening out there. And if they see a particular person portrayed in a certain way, then it's the joke of the day.
Yeah.
So it really,
I mean, even the radio goes to the print media. I think there's a section on, maybe is it Nationwide in the mornings, where they do look at the front page and they go through all of the stories. And so, I mean, we see how media sets the agenda in many ways about what we are talking about and how we are talking about it. Again, going back to the research, where you see the emphasis on crime and violence, for example. And when we talk about crime and violence, particularly in Jamaica, very often that's referring to gun violence.
Right.
So things like sexual violence that affect men and women differently, boys and girls differently, is almost like we don't even see it. And I think that one of the things that media can do and can do effectively is help us to see things that we don't see as readily just, in our everyday happenings, that it can highlight areas where people are being affected. But unless it's brought to the forefront and brought to our attention, then it kind of just goes unnoticed and perceived to be unimportant. So when we're seeing the recurring images of women, being sexified and objectified and that kind of thing, it's like we tend to forget that, they might be looking sexified and objectified, but they're also much more likely to experience sexual violence. Where are services for women who, and boys and men who are experiencing sexual violation? Where can they go to get resources? These are some of the things that can be highlighted through media.
I totally agree with you, Georgia, and you mentioned a very good point because, sometimes you watch the news and in your mind you're thinking that the only violence really is a crime situation. I don't know if it's a you don't want to see so you don't feel that it's real kind of thing. I don't know what kind of thinking it's behind the whole media content. But a lot of people, even with crimes against children, there's alarming rate going up, and a lot of people, sometimes they're just not aware of what's happening. So media do have a responsibility, and they do impact our thoughts, whether positive or negatively, based on what the studies do show.
And as women leaders, I think that's an opportunity as well, So when we do have access to the mic or the lens or whatever, is that we can help to highlight things that sometimes get swept under the rug and begin to kind of shift people's attention. And yeah, it really just, it takes time and it takes consistency. And, again, it's the same thing with advertising. A part of what's effective about advertising, if it have a nice jingle and whatever, but you're not going to remember an ad just by hearing it once. We have to keep on saying it over and over and over again. And every time you have an opportunity to speak or get your message out, to kind of think about what are some of the things that I want to be putting on the table, putting at the forefront.
Well, there you have it. Some very good points at this time. People right now, for example, you have persons who are listening, and sometimes you have people who come on programs and you've heard a lot of stuff talking, and you're wondering, how can I be a part of that? What if somebody wants to be a part of WMW? What kind of membership can they aspire to? How can they get involved?
Well, we definitely welcome volunteers, and I would say that one of the key things is, if you're interested in education, if you're interested in learning how to impart information in your community, you want to work with young people, for example, we have years and years of experience in teaching and how to teach well and better. And so if you want to build those skills, you can definitely come and be a volunteer in that area. If you're interested in making media, if you like to write stories, if you like to take pictures, if you think you would want to come and work on this radio program, then yeah, definitely come and help create some of the more diverse and interesting and reflective stories that, we can build community radio and community media. And if you like to ask questions and do research, we're always trying to build more of the original information data, right? Because sometimes we have impressions of what we think is happening, right, but unless we do the research to really find out if it's really so it go,
right,
then we kind of speaking in generalities. And so we're always looking for more people to help us dig for information, ask questions, so it's kind of like Corner Beat, but in a more organized way, and build up our own data about what's happening in media in Jamaica and in the region.
We're coming down to the end of the program, and we just want to allow you to really expand. You're young in person, but your experience is wide. Just when you give us an idea of when you just started out, what was the how did you go about starting out first thing as an individual in leadership, in training? How did you venture into that arena?
I guess I kind of stumbled into leadership, which I think happens to a lot of women. But I wanted to make a change, and I wanted to feel like I was doing the right thing, and I knew that just going to work and putting on my stockings every day wasn't going to do it. And I found women particularly that I felt were good examples, and I connected with them, and I continued to learn from them for a very long time. So a lot of what I understand about this media business and gender business is through just kind of following behind more senior women who have been in the work, and learning from them as I go along. And I've had opportunities to just get exposed to different kinds of resources online, people who come in and out of Jamaica, connecting with those people, meeting with them, learning from them. I feel women continually contribute to the shaping of this country in fundamental ways, and we owe it to them. I mean, it's not just Nanny, that helped create the country we now enjoy. We owe it to our grandmothers, we owe it to our mothers or aunts, all of those women who have really pushed to ensure that we received education, that we were fed, that we were clothed, etc. They exercise leadership in those spheres, and I think have helped open doors for us. And I do this work because I want to encourage women to walk through those doors. A lot of the doors are open, but we need to really facilitate the walking through part. And I've had the opportunity to have doors open for me, and I'm wanting to continue to open doors for others. So
perfect. And I just had a haha moment as you mentioned, because you mentioned that we have persons who have opened doors for us. I remember years ago we've been celebrating 1st of August long before it was a holiday in Jamaica, and I was always wondering how we celebrating 1st of August through generation of family. So it's eventually came into being that we acknowledge things. So sometimes people have opened door and we just need to step in and become ourselves. Nelson Mandela has a quote that I'm leaning to. Quote, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. It also seems impossible until it's done. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same, end quote. And so it's definitely our intention on Equal Spaces to edify our listeners, and so that they too can also let their light shine and walk through some of those doors that have been open for us.
And I mean, I think as it relates to media and representation, for me it's like I just want to encourage people to put the me in media. I think very often we get used to looking at other people and looking at ideals of things that don't look like our lives. And media, I think the best media is the one that reflects you, reflects me. And at WMW, we'll continue to work towards ensuring that media is as diverse as it can be, to really,
we could go on with this media conversation, because as you say, put the me in media, a lot of people think that those reality TV shows are probably real, but in essence, sometimes we have to inject ourselves into the whole thing and really analyze, is this really real? Can it be so? Because in a real world, and surely we don't have a perfect world, it would not be so. And sometimes we try to emulate things that are not so, and then we put up ourselves so high, with things that become so unbelievable and can't be so. But definitely, Georgia, I want to thank you for coming on our program this week. It has been such an enlightening one, very interesting one, especially that report that came out and that we participated with. That remind me of that name again.
The Global Media Monitoring Project.
Definitely. So in fact, it's not just us that's saying this information. The information is out there. It has been studied. It has been presented, and we were a party to that information. So in fact, those are empirical proof that things really can't remain the same. We have to look at it on a different light. So there you have it from Equal Spaces this week. Equal Spaces is produced by WMW Jamaica, and they are at 1A Goodwood Terrace, Kingston 8. And remind me of their numbers, please.
969-7894 and cell phone 881 5177.
Great. So you know where you can go for your training requests. They don't have any problems training church, corporation, personal groups. Get in contact with them if you want to volunteer your services, and you want to find out and learn more. That's the place to go. This program is aired on Roots 96.1 FM, and definitely this is the voice of the inner city. Thanks again to my host, my guest, my guest, Georgia Love. It was really a pleasure. I'd like to also thank our broadcasting engineer, Abba. Big up yourself. Our very hardworking producers at WMW Secretariat. And thanks to you, our listeners. This evening broadcast is funded by UN Women, Fund for Gender Equality. Please join us again next week at 5 p.m. when we will share the space with you again. We leave you with this song, Bob Marley, Get Up, Stand Up.